My wife secretly sold our family home for $350, $0 behind my back to pay off her gambling debts, then forged my signature to buy a new place, and now she's suing me over half the inheritance. I can't believe I married her for love, not a financial nightmare. I never thought I'd be writing something like this, but here I am. It all started with a gut feeling that just wouldn't go away. You know how they say sometimes your instincts are right? Well, mine were screaming at me. I had no idea how deep the rabbit hole went until I stumbled upon the truth that turned my life upside down. My wife, Sarah, and I had been married for about 6 years. We met in college, fell hard for each other, and I honestly thought I had found the one. She seemed perfect, smart, beautiful, confident. But somewhere along the way, things started to change. She became more secretive, more defensive when I asked about her day or her plans. She was never outright dishonest, but the little lies started piling up. She'd say she was at work, but I'd catch her sneaking her phone into the bathroom or hiding her screen when I walked in. It was subtle, but enough to make me suspicious. The first real sign was when I noticed her phone bill was unusually high, calls and texts to a guy named Mike. I didn't think much of it initially, dismissing it as harmless. But then I started noticing her disappearing for hours, sometimes late at night. She'd say she was out with friends, but I'd find her car parked in a different part of town, or she'd come back looking overly tired and defensive. When I pressed her, she'd brush it off, call me paranoid, accuse me of not trusting her, but I knew something was off. One evening, I decided to check her phone when she went to the store. What I found made my stomach drop. There were messages, flirty, explicit messages between her and Mike. They talked about meeting up, about sex, about running away together. My heart pounded. It was like a punch to the gut. I never thought she'd cheat, especially not like this, not so blatantly. I felt betrayed, humiliated. How could she do this after everything we built? I confronted her that night. I laid everything out on the table, her texts, the calls, the times I caught her lying. Her face turned stone cold. She looked at me with those icy eyes and lied right to my face. Said she was just talking to a friend, that I was overreacting. She called me paranoid, accused me of snooping, but I knew the truth. She was cheating and she didn't care how much it hurt me. The thing is, I loved her. I wanted to believe she'd come clean, that it was a mistake, that we could fix it. But her reaction made it clear she had no intention of stopping. She was caught and she was angry that I found out. The betrayal cut so deep I couldn't even process it at first. I felt humiliated and furious. I'd given her everything, my love, my trust, my life, and she was out there with some guy sneaking around, lying to my face. And the worst part, I found out she'd been lying about her financial situation too. I had always handled the money, our savings, investments, the house. We bought a family home together, a place I thought was our future. But I learned she'd secretly sold that house behind my back for $350, zero to pay off her gambling debts. She forged my signature to buy a new place without telling me. I felt like I'd been punched again. How could she do this? How could she lie about everything, especially our home? The shock was overwhelming. I couldn't understand how someone I loved could betray me so completely. I felt numb, then angry, then sad. All the dreams I had for us, our future, our family, were crashing down around me. I didn't know what to do. I was angry at her, yes, but also at myself for not seeing it sooner. I kept asking myself, how did I miss all these signs? How did I not see her for who she really was? That's when I realized I needed to get some clarity. I couldn't keep living in this fog of lies and betrayal. I decided I had to confront her again, dig deeper, figure out what she'd done, how much more she'd lied. I knew I had to find out the full extent of her deception if I was going to decide what to do next. I never thought I'd be in this position, married for love, betrayed for money, and now facing a future I never wanted. But one thing was clear, I was done trusting her without question. The walls were closing in and I had to face the truth, no matter how ugly it was. The next few days were a blur of disbelief and anger. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her face, her lies, the texts she tried to hide. I started digging into everything I could find, bank accounts, emails, her social media. I needed to know how deep her deception went. That's when I found out about the house sale. She'd secretly sold our family home for $350, $0, claiming she needed to pay off her gambling debts. I never knew she had a gambling problem. She always hid it well. She'd been secretly losing money, hiding withdrawals, lying about her expenses. Then, one day, she decided to sell the house behind my back without telling me. I was stunned. That house was our life, our stability, and she just handed it over to cover her own mess. I also uncovered more surprises. She forged my signature to buy a new place, another house. A small condo, she said, was just a temporary fix until we found a new family home. But she had already moved in with her new boyfriend, Jason. I found receipts from furniture stores, utility bills, even a lease agreement with her name on it. She'd been lying about everything, her whereabouts, her money, her intentions. I felt like I'd been hit by a train. How could she do this? How could she lie so convincingly? The most gut-wrenching part was the documents she left behind, emails, texts, even a handwritten note confessing she'd been with Jason for months. She claimed it was just sex, that she didn't love him, that she'd never meant for it to ruin us. But it did. It shattered any hope I had of saving what was left of our marriage. I wasn't just betrayed emotionally. She destroyed our financial security, our home, everything I thought was ours. I felt like I'd been living in a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. I decided I had to confront her again. This time, face to face. I arranged to meet her at her new place. When I showed up, she looked surprised, like she didn't expect me to find out everything so quickly. Her eyes darted around, trying come up with some excuse, but I wasn't having it. I laid out everything I'd discovered, her secret sale of the house, the forged signature, her affair with Jason. Her face turned red, then pale. She started lying again, saying I was misunderstanding, that I was blowing things out of proportion, that she only did what she did because she was desperate. She said she loved me, that she never meant to hurt me, but I knew better. Her words were empty, her lies transparent. The anger boiled over. I felt betrayed and humiliated, but mostly I was furious at her betrayal, how she'd used me, lied to me, played me for a fool. I had trusted her with everything. Our money, our future, our love. And she'd thrown it all away for a quick fix, her gambling debts, her affair, her lies. I told her she had no right to sue me over the inheritance, half of our assets which she'd betrayed me to get her hands on. I told her I was filing for divorce, that I wanted nothing more to do with her lies and deception. She just sneered, said I was overreacting, and called me a jealous, controlling husband, but I knew the truth. I'd been played, used, and discarded like garbage. That night I went home feeling hollow. I couldn't believe I married her for love, only to find out she was out there screwing around, gambling our future away, and forging my name to cover her tracks. The house, the money, everything I'd worked for, she'd sold it all behind my back. It was like she'd taken my life and burned it to the ground. I kept asking myself how I missed the signs, how I didn't see her slipping away, how I didn't notice how cold she'd become. But now I saw everything clearly. She was a liar, a cheater, a thief. And I was the one left picking up the pieces. I realized I had to do something drastic. I couldn't just walk away from this. No, I had to make her pay. I started planning how to expose her, how to fight back legally, how to protect what little was left of my sanity. I knew she'd try to manipulate me, lie her way out of it, but I had proof. I had everything. And I wouldn't let her get away with destroying my life. Not without a fight. I was done playing nice. From this moment on, she was going to see what it really meant to betray someone who loved her. And I was going to make sure she paid for every lie, every betrayal, every dollar she stole from me. The days that followed were the worst of my life. I felt like I was walking around in a fog, trying to process everything I'd uncovered. The house was still empty, silent except for the faint hum of the refrigerator and the occasional creak of the floorboards. I couldn't believe she'd done all this behind my back, selling our home, forging my signature, cheating on me with Jason, and then trying to sue me over the inheritance. It was like a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. Every time I thought about it, my stomach clenched, and I felt this burning rage that refused to go away. I decided I had to get legal advice. I found a lawyer who specialized in family law and financial disputes. Sitting in his office, I laid out everything I'd discovered. Her secret sale of the house, the forged documents, her affair, her scheme to get the inheritance. Lawyer's face was grim as he looked over the papers. He told me that I had a strong case to contest the sale and the transfer of property, especially since she forged my signature. He explained that I could potentially reverse the sale, freeze her accounts, and even pursue criminal charges for forgery and fraud. But he warned me that this was going to get ugly. Meanwhile, I started digging into her finances more. I hired a private investigator to follow her and Jason. The Pi confirmed she'd been living with him for months, sneaking out at night, hiding money from me. He also found out she opened multiple bank accounts under fake names, transferring funds, hiding her gambling winnings and debts. It was a tangled web of lies and deception. I felt sick just thinking about how much she'd lied, how much she'd stolen from me. All those years I thought she was my partner, my soulmate. Turns out she was just using me. One afternoon I received a call from the Pi. He said he had footage of her and Jason at a hotel, clearly together. I couldn't believe it, seeing her in those videos, laughing, touching him, knowing she was with him while pretending to be a devoted wife, made my blood boil. I'd known she was cheating, but seeing it confirmed was a punch to the stomach. It was like everything I believed in was a lie. How could she do this to me? How could she betray me so openly and shamelessly? That night I confronted her again. I told her I knew about Jason, about the hotel footage, about everything. Her reaction was classic. She denied everything at first, then started lying again, saying I was stalking her, that I was paranoid. She called me jealous, controlling, nuts. She insisted she loved me, that Jason was just a fling, that she was going to leave him and come back to me. That was a joke. I saw right through her. She'd been with him for months. How could she think I'd buy that she was innocent? I told her I was done listening to her bullshit. I was filing for divorce and taking her to court over the house and the money. But she wasn't done. That's when she pulled out the big guns. Her lawyer sent a cease and desist letter, claiming I was trying to destroy her reputation. She also filed a countersuit, claiming I was abusive and controlling. I couldn't believe her audacity. She was trying to spin it all, make herself the victim. Meanwhile, she was out there screwing around, hiding money and forging my signature. I felt like I was in some twisted soap opera. The emotional toll was enormous. I felt betrayed, humiliated, angry, and incredibly sad. I kept asking myself how someone I loved could turn into this person, so selfish, so manipulative. I was angry at her, but I was also angry at myself for not seeing it sooner. How did I miss all these signs? How could I be so blind? I'd always believed in honesty and loyalty, and now I knew I'd been played for a fool. Every time I thought I was close to understanding, something new came up, another lie, another betrayal. It was like peeling an onion, but every layer was worse than the last. At the same time, I was trying to hold myself together. I had to face the reality that my marriage was over, that my entire life had been upended by her greed and lies. I couldn't keep living in this chaos. I made a decision. I was going to fight for what was rightfully mine, for the house, the money, the truth. I couldn't let her get away with stealing everything I'd worked for. I started gathering more evidence, preparing for the court battle ahead. I knew it wouldn't be easy, but I was determined to see this through. I had to make her pay for what she did. She'd betrayed me, lied to me, used me, and now she was going to face the consequences. The legal process dragged on, and every day felt like a new punch to the gut. I was juggling the emotional fallout of betrayal with the mounting pressure of fighting a woman who was clearly determined to keep her lies hidden. My lawyer advised me to be patient, but also to prepare for a long, nasty battle. Meanwhile, I kept digging into her financial records, trying to find any slip-up, any detail that could tip the scales in my favor. What really set me off was discovering just how deep her deception went with the house. She'd not only sold it behind my back, but had also manipulated the legal process to cover her tracks. I found out she'd hired a shady lawyer, someone who knew how to forge signatures and cook the books. She'd been planning this for months, maybe longer. I couldn't believe I married someone capable of such cold, calculated betrayal. It was like she'd planned to take everything from me from the start. One day, I got hold of more evidence, An email from her lawyer discussing how to hide the money from the sale, how to forge my signature on legal documents, and how to minimize the fallout if I ever found out. Reading that email made my stomach turn. It was clear she'd been orchestrating this entire scheme for a while. The more I uncovered, the angrier I got. I started to realize I'd been played, used as a pawn in her game of greed and deception. I also learned that she'd been trying to sabotage me financially. She transferred money out of joint accounts, maxed out credit cards, and even tried to open new accounts under fake names. I was furious. She'd been draining our shared resources, all to cover her gambling debts and pay for her affair with Jason. I couldn't believe how far she'd gone. She'd lied, cheated, forged, and stole from me, all while pretending to be the perfect wife. Every new discovery made me feel more betrayed, more disgusted. My emotional state was a mess. I oscillated between rage, sadness, and a strange sense of numbness. I'd loved her once, believed in us, believed she was my soulmate. Now I saw her for what she really was, a manipulative, selfish woman who'd thrown everything away for her own greed. I kept replaying the moments when she lied to my face, when she pretended to be innocent, when she smiled and betrayed me all at once. It was like watching someone I didn't even recognize. The worst part was feeling utterly powerless. She had all the cards, her lawyer, her lies, her schemes. I was just trying to hold it together, gather evidence, and prepare for the inevitable courtroom showdown. I knew she'd try to spin her story, paint herself as the victim, and make me look crazy. That's why I kept pushing, kept digging, and kept gathering proof. I wanted to make sure that when the time came, I'd be ready to fight back with everything I had. I also started reaching out to friends and family, trying to get support. Some people couldn't believe what I was telling them. "She seemed so sweet," they'd say. "You married her because you loved her, right?" Yeah, I did. And that's what made it so hard to accept that she'd been lying to me for so long. I felt stupid, naive even. But I also felt angry, so angry at her for breaking my heart, for destroying the trust we had built. One thing I knew for sure: my world had changed forever. I couldn't go back to how things were before. I had to make a choice: continue fighting for what's rightfully mine, or give up and walk away with nothing. I wasn't about to let her win that easily. I had to stand my ground, no matter how ugly it got. I kept telling myself that I deserved better, that I'd be okay eventually. But right now, all I could focus on was getting through each day, one step at a time, knowing that everything I thought was real had turned out to be a lie. The court dates kept coming, and with each hearing the truth about her schemes became harder for her to hide. I had all the evidence: bank statements, forged signatures, emails, the hotel footage with Jason. Everything pointed to one conclusion: she was a liar and a thief. Still, she was fighting hard, trying to spin stories and manipulate the process. Her lawyer kept trying to paint her as the victim, claiming I was overreacting, that I was trying to control her, that she was innocent of any real wrongdoing. But I knew better. One morning, just days before the final hearing, I received a call from my lawyer. He told me she had filed a counterclaim, accusing me of abuse, of controlling her, of trying to sabotage her reputation. I couldn't believe her audacity. She was trying to paint herself as the victim when she'd been the one betraying me from the start. I felt a mixture of rage and despair. How could she stoop so low? How could she lie so blatantly? It was like she was trying to turn the tables, to make me look crazy so she could escape the consequences of her actions. That night I sat alone in my apartment, staring at the pile of documents and evidence I'd collected. I thought about everything: the betrayal, the lies, the stolen money, the house she sold. Behind my back, her affair with Jason. I felt exhausted, drained, but also more determined than ever. I knew I couldn't let her get away with this. I had to fight for what was mine, for the truth, for my dignity. In the days leading up to the final hearing, I prepared my testimony. I rehearsed what I would say, how I'd lay out the facts clearly and firmly. I wanted the court to see her for what she really was: a manipulative, selfish woman who'd lied, cheated, and stolen from me. I knew I had the evidence. I just had to present it convincingly. I also hired a financial expert to help prove her schemes, to show how she drained our accounts and manipulated the legal system. The day of the hearing was nerve-wracking. I dressed sharply, feeling the weight of everything I'd been through. When I took the stand, I told the court everything about the house sale, the forged signature, her affair, her attempt to sue me over the inheritance. I kept my voice steady, focused on the facts. I presented the evidence, answered the questions honestly, and tried not to let my emotions get the better of me. Her lawyer tried to undermine me at every turn, but I held my ground. I could see her trying to look composed, but her eyes kept darting around. She was nervous, maybe even scared. I knew she was worried about losing everything, and I was determined she would. When the judge finally made their ruling, it was a relief. They ordered her to return the house, to pay back the money she'd stolen, and barred her from pursuing her false claims. It wasn't everything I wanted, but it was a start. After the court decision, I felt a strange mix of relief and emptiness. I had fought hard and I'd won some sense of justice, but the damage was done. My trust was shattered, my heart broken. I realized I'd been through a war, emotionally, financially, legally. I'd lost my marriage, my home, and a part of my innocence. I thought about what I'd learned, that people can hide their true selves behind a mask, that love isn't always enough, and that sometimes you have to fight tooth and nail just to reclaim what's yours. I decided to start over. I sold the condo she'd secretly bought, paid off the debts she'd racked up, and moved into a small apartment. It wasn't much, but it was mine. I knew I'd need time to heal, to rebuild my trust in people, to learn how to trust myself again. I also knew I'd never forget her, but I wouldn't let her define my future. Looking back, I realized that this experience has changed me, made me more cautious, more aware, but also more resilient. I learned that sometimes the people you love the most can hurt you the deepest. But I also learned that justice can be served, even if it's hard. And most importantly, I learned that I have the strength to survive, to fight back, and to come out on the other side. If there's one thing I'd tell anyone in a similar situation, it's this: trust your instincts, gather evidence early, and don't be afraid to fight for what's right. Because at the end of the day, no amount of lies can hold up against the truth. Now, sitting here reflecting on everything, I realize just how much this ordeal has changed me. I used to think love was enough, that if you found the right person, everything would fall into place. Turns out that's not always true. Sometimes the person you trust the most turns out to be the one who's been secretly destroying everything you built. That betrayal cuts deep, and it's not something you get over overnight. Losing my marriage, my home, and my sense of security was brutal. But what hurt even more was the realization that I had been blind to her lies, her manipulations, her greed. I kept asking myself how I missed all the signs, how I let her get away with so much. But I also learned that you can't control other people's choices. You can only control how you respond. I chose to fight, to seek justice, to stand up for myself. That decision saved what little dignity I had left. I've come out of this with a new outlook. I'm more cautious now, yes, but also more aware. I trust fewer people, but I also value honesty more than ever. I've learned that sometimes love isn't enough, and that's okay. Because in the end, what matters most is protecting yourself and your own well-being. If someone shows you who they really are, through their lies, their actions, you'd better believe them. Most importantly, I've learned that resilience is key. No matter how hard life gets, you find a way to keep going. You pick up the pieces and you build again, even if it's just a small start. I still have scars, but they remind me of my strength. They remind me that I survived something that almost broke me. To anyone reading this who might be going through something similar, know that you're not alone. Trust your gut, gather your evidence, and don't let anyone manipulate you. Fight for yourself, because nobody else will do it for you. And never forget, truth has a way of coming out, no matter how deeply it's buried. The pain might never fully go away, but with time, healing is possible. And one day, you'll look back and realize that what seemed like the end was actually just the beginning of a new, stronger chapter of your life.